Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy. You can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Hi fans, today's episode is another special one. Aren't they all special? It's with one of my clients, Jaden. We've been working together. She was a member of the Female Athlete System of Transformation. Then we did continue working together a little bit beyond that to help her reach her goals. So she's here to share her story, her journey, her transformation, and so much more. So welcome, Jaden.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited because I feel like your story is something I think a lot of people will relate with, but your transformation is very unique and something that I do think few people have the courage to do. So to kind of kick us off, Jaden, do you mind sharing a bit about yourself? You're a runner, you're in college, and tell me kind of a bit about your struggles and what things kind of brought you to me back in, I guess it was closer to the fall that we started working together.
November-ish, I think.
Yeah, November of 2020. So yeah, what were some things going on in your life at that time that made you say, all right, I need to address my nutrition and reach out to me?
Okay, well, it kind of goes pretty far back to when I was in about 5th grade. Well, I've been running competitively since I was in 5th grade, and I started running just leisurely with my dad when I was in probably 2nd grade, and do 5Ks at the church every year, and I was pretty good at that. So I'm like, okay. And my 2 older sisters both ran and were pretty good in middle school, and one continued to be good in high school. But yeah, so I've been running competitively since then. And around that time, my sister started to get sick with an eating disorder as well, or not as well, but
first.
And then, yes, first. And I had always been relatively a thin child. My mom told me that I had bird legs when I was little because I was so skinny. And that was kind of positively reinforced. So, and I felt like that was kind of part of not really who I was, but sort of. And also, like I was saying, my sister had an eating disorder when she's 2 years older than I am. So I was in 5th grade, and that was just really stressful for the whole family, and especially on me and my oldest sister. And definitely, I'm really good at not displaying emotion. And so I just pretty much just kept it all in because I didn't want to be more of a burden. I didn't want to be just something else that that my family had to deal with. So I just kind of kept it in, and around 6th grade-ish, it started to more affect me, and it led to a deeper, more serious depression, I suppose, and just feeling of inadequacy, and just that it that I wasn't good enough, that there was no point of my existence in a sense.
Wow. Isn't that crazy? Such deep feelings as a 6th grader. It's kind of heartbreaking now thinking back on it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think about it and I'm just holy crap, that's horrible. But at the time I was just oh, it's my fault. It's not anything external. It's just me. And then also regarding my sister's eating disorder, I was okay, this is just stupid. I don't understand it. I think it's dumb. She's just, making everything up. And around the end of my 6th grade year, in the summer going into 7th grade, I really that feeling of being inadequate and like that started to transfer over into like food and exercise as well. Because my sister, she was a pretty good runner in middle school and continued to be in high school as well. And we were on the same team for many, many years, which was fun. But because we were both pretty good, but it just like I started to compare myself, like what was I doing? What was I eating compared to her? And that just kind of like all snowballed into this is what I can control. I'm going to like also, I felt like that I was eating like more than her, or like that I was bigger than her. And that was not okay because I was younger than her. And so I wasn't supposed to do that, which is not, not really true.
We now know that's not true, but as a 10, 12-year-old going through this, it's like, and this is something I do want to express, that it wasn't your fault, Jaden, because you were a child. Like when you really think about it, like your brain wasn't even fully formed, and you're making these decisions and thoughts about yourself just as a child. You're saying now as an adult, like, that's not true, that was silly, but at that time you really didn't know better. And that's what's so tragic about these situations, is these decisions that you made about yourself at such a young age that weren't even true, but yet affected you and afflicted you for so many years to come.
Yeah, I think about that. I'm like, if I could go back and change one thing, what could it be? And it'd definitely be sometime in like those 2 years of my life that I'd just be like, okay, don't go down that path. Your life would be a lot better. And well,
yeah,
I guess maybe better. We don't know, but everything happens for a reason.
We don't know. We'll never know. Exactly. And that's what we'll settle on. Everything happens for a reason. You're in a better place now, which we'll eventually get to, but we can't always figure out like, why did I go down that path? But just, I think that's where forgiveness is important I was just a child. I didn't know better. And this is also, I think, important too, because we talk about people's exposures. I think part of your story is the comparison trap that you fell into with your sister. And in some ways, it was this fun thing that you and your sister running together was so fun. You were both great. And it's something you shared together, but it did easily become who's the smaller one, who's the bigger one. Well, I'm younger. I should, putting these expectations on yourself about how maybe you should look or how you should be eating. Just because you're younger, you should eat less or something. And, that's not true, but you're not alone in having those thoughts. And that's where I think when it comes to team sports and siblings, I grew up with siblings as well, 3 of them. And it's just something I think probably for parents to just be aware of, as I'm sure that they are, and I'm sure yours were very aware, but just to be aware of that. And on team sports of how quickly and how easily a child or adolescent athlete can start comparing, and to just try and like address that when we can, because it happens so quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially with me, I'm a very competitive individual. So just like that comes from my dad's side of the family for sure, but just like trying to be the best at everything that I do, even though I'm not good at a lot of things. But
you're the youngest, right?
Yes, I am.
That is,
other than my cat.
That's like a sibling. When you look into the research behind like sibling order and stuff, that's a common trait of the youngest one, is to be super competitive. You're trying to keep up with your older siblings. If your sisters, were 16 when you were 12, you're trying to act like a 16-year-old. It's a very common personality trait of youngest siblings.
Yeah. Like that definitely carried through from like a young age, even through like, well, me and my sister were on the same team until I was a sophomore in high school. And just like, why couldn't I like beat her? Why couldn't I do better? Or like, I should be doing better. But at the same time, I'm 2 years younger. I was way faster than she was when she was a sophomore. Like, just like, I didn't look at the positive things. I just looked at the negative.
Yeah. Yeah. And then sibling order is so interesting. I've looked into this a lot just because I do have 3 siblings and I just find it fascinating. And there's different pressures that an oldest child feels, or a middle child, or depending on if your siblings are, the same sex as you, or if they're, sisters or brothers. And it's really interesting, that dynamic. But yeah, it sounds like, Jaden, you were somebody that very competitive from a young age, having this influence, trying to keep up with your sister, even regardless of if your sister was doing the right or wrong things. And it just led you down an unfortunate path is where we're getting at.
Yeah, for sure. I just realized that like food was something that I could control. It was something that maybe because I noticed that like she was eating quote unquote healthier than I was. Because I mean, I was a kid. My favorite food as a kid, I vowed that I would feed my children Kraft mac and cheese every single day of their lives. I now break that vow, um, but like I was the kid. I loved sweets and like everything like that. But then my sister, she was just eating like super healthy and she was a good runner. And I'm like, maybe those things are correlated. Or maybe because she was eating healthier, or it seemed that she was eating less, maybe she was a better runner because that. And maybe I should do the same thing so I could be a better runner. And so it was also more of like the whole thinner is better, or like you'll be faster that way. The whole lie that is quite often in the running culture.
Yeah, the lie that is so embedded in running culture and in, I think, just adolescent minds as well, that thinner is better.
Yeah. So then pretty much like after, like I wanted to be faster, I wanted to be better, I wanted to reach my potential. Little did I know I was quite limiting it. I ended up pretty much starving myself. I was diagnosed with anorexia when I was in 7th grade. I relatively quickly, gained the weight back in a couple of months with working with a couple other people, or doctors, I suppose, including a nutritionist, but they mostly just like fixed like the external stuff, like my weight, my whatever, and got me back to like quote unquote like normal weight, which was good. Yeah, that was necessary. And I'm happy they did that. But it definitely could have helped more if they did more of the internal stuff, or like with the nutrition aspect. But also, it doesn't really help that I have always more of been like I kind of expressed, like I kept my emotions to myself. I keep my thoughts to myself. I keep everything to myself. That's just the way it is. I don't tell people things. I keep it to myself. And so I was more of like a closed book. I wasn't really looking for help. I wasn't.
So maybe even if you did do some of that internal work or that therapy, who knows if it would have even been effective at that time if you weren't receptive to it, which we do see a lot with these situations where, especially at that age, that's most often as parents are saying, oh my gosh, we need to get you help. And the parents get them help, which is the right thing to do. But if you're not open to it, if you're not receptive to it yet, it doesn't always work quite as it's not the full solution, I should say. It'll save you in that moment from terrible things and from death, which is good, to have you not be starving anymore. But which is why, which I know we'll get to, so I'm not trying to fast forward, but which is why it is so good that when you did sign up with me, that was out of your own doing, your own desire. And I think that makes a huge difference in people's recovery journey and just life journey of when it's something that's your own decision. And when you're open enough to it, you're going to see much better results. But yeah, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I definitely agree with that. I did work with like a psychologist, but I wasn't open, so it didn't work. Like, it's not her fault. It's not anyone else's fault. That was like solely my doing because I wasn't a very open person. But yes, pretty much the nutritionist said like, oh, maybe if you get your weight up, you can run track in the spring. And I'm like, that was not even an option. That was not even on the table. And then all of a sudden it was. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to do this.
Competitive Jaden came out. You're like, I will do it. I will gain weight so I can run track.
Yes. And so I gained it back. And I mean, I had like a few injuries just because I hadn't ran in however long, and all of a sudden started running again. Like, so yeah, I dealt with like a couple injuries. I wasn't great, but like I was better in cross country that season. I was great in 7th grade. It was fun. And then I had a couple injuries in 8th grade, or just like my hips were messed up, common trend. And I got my first stress fracture in my foot the winter of 8th grade. And so I didn't run track that spring, which was kind of sad because I had a lot of like bigger goals, but it was probably good looking back because I had a pretty good freshman year, despite like that was probably the last time I have ran injury free other than shin splints, but that doesn't count to me compared to my other injuries.
Shin splints
So
don't hold up compared to stress fractures.
oh no, nothing at all. I mean, it hurt,
Yeah.
but I could run through it. I mean, I also ran through stress fractures, but I'll get to that in a second. And then by this time I was how old was I? I believe I ran my first meet when I was 13, so I must have been like 14. In cross country, I did pretty good. Beat my sister's times. It was great. But yeah, and at this time I still like didn't have a period. I was 15 or 14. That's not normal. And I kind of saw it a little bit as an advantage, like, oh, I don't have to deal with that. Like it's better this way. And I didn't really see how much that was affecting me. And I really didn't see that until later, or a few years later.
Most people don't. And again, like I hope that some young girls listen to this, because I think so many people will relate to what you've been through. There's so many 14, 15-year-olds that think that don't have their period, that lost their period, that are like, well, it's easier this way. Like, I just don't want to deal with that. This is better, but listen to Jaden's story that it wasn't better. Things only got worse.
No, I wish someone would have, if I could go back and talk to myself as I was, say, even like 4 years ago, I would have been like, do something about this. This is not an advantage. You will regret this. But yeah, it was also like, I couldn't tell you who said it, but I remember someone, okay, so my oldest sister slowed down in like 7th grade after cross country, started slowing down, and she got her period around that time. And someone was like, oh yeah, that's why she slowed down, like, because she started developing. And that just kind of like stuck in my brain. I'm like, oh, so that'll slow me down, so I don't want that. So that also led to like more of like the restriction in my diet, and like also more exercise. And I want to pause and I want to talk about this a little bit more really quick, because sure, let's be honest with people and give the real answer. Sometimes going through puberty does affect our performance and temporarily might slow us down, because our body is going through so many changes. So if you're a runner, it might slow you down. If you're a gymnast, it might be harder to tumble a little bit. You're going to have more challenges as you go through puberty, as you develop breasts, as you have hormones and estrogen, as you have a thing called PMS week, where nothing feels good for a couple of days. That can affect your performance. Okay. So we're going to be honest about that. But once you get through puberty and you get on the other side, you actually have more hormones that can make you a stronger athlete. You now can keep up with the next level, to include whether that's, running as a junior and senior in high school, or making it to the collegiate level or beyond. Like, you need to go through that process in order to take it to the next step. And so when we delay that process, it actually prevents us from going further. So I don't know. I just like to say that because I like to be real. Puberty is hard. It's hard. Your body might change, you might gain weight, you might slow down a little bit, but it's all for the end goal of becoming not only a woman, becoming a woman, but becoming the athlete that you really want to be. The more you delay, now you're just an injured and sick 17-year-old instead of a strong and fit 17-year-old. Yeah. And I never correlated those things in my brain. If I like go through puberty, or if I like get my period, then I never correlated in my mind that I was going to be a better athlete. So like, I just avoided that. And I now know that is completely wrong. And yeah, I mean, I've known that for a while now, but yeah.
Yeah. And if I can just bring this full circle for the listeners, like, the reason it's completely wrong is as we were getting to, the multiple injuries that you suffered that ended your career, quite frankly. It had to come to a screeching halt because your body couldn't handle it anymore.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My junior year cross country, I had some hip issues, but ended up making it to nationals, ran a great race. Very strange. Ended up at 6th somehow, some way. I don't know how. Still kills me. But after that, my track season was absolute crap. I ran horribly. I okay, it wasn't that bad, but I thought it was bad. And I was very unhappy with it. And I ended up with a stress fracture. I believe it was on my right side this time, in my right femoral neck.
The big spot.
And yeah, and that's like one of like the high risk, like meaning like, okay, something's wrong, like fracture areas. And I ran through it. I mean, my coach kind of told me to. I mean, I didn't run at practice. I biked, I ran meets. I mean, I got all state in the 2 mile and mile, or like, yeah. So by running like 5 times in the month before. And so I could still run, but it was ugly. It was horribly ugly. My first like 200 meters wasn't like a weird limp thing where I don't even know if my leg was making it off the ground. And somehow, some way I finished the races. And it was bad.
Oh my God.
Then I took a couple months off and decided to all of a sudden like start running for my senior year, because I took a few months off and just kind of dove right back into it. And definitely should have taken that slower looking back. But another fracture in femoral neck, but this time on the left side. So we're evening things out.
Gosh.
But yeah, that one wasn't fun. And yeah, that one was interesting. I almost won a state meet on that though, with that and a labrum tear, which was kind of fun, but
Oh
at the same time, I hurt so bad. But anyway, at that point, I had 2 fractures, was going to sports med on a like probably like 3 times a week basis, just because like I couldn't move. It was horrible. It hurt so bad. And at that point, I was like, okay, something's wrong. We need to get a bone density scan, because there's obviously something not right with my bones if I keep fracturing like this. And if there isn't anything wrong with my bones, then it's something else. And so we just need to start like checking off the list of what could be wrong, because I can't have another one of these. And so I went in at the end of November of 2019 and got a bone density scan. I distinctly remember this day, actually, but my mom called me after school and she's like, yeah, the doctors called with your results. You have osteoporosis. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, didn't really think about it. I was like, I know that's like an old people disease that just means that your bones are bad. And like, honestly, I was slightly relieved, because there was something wrong with me. Like, having a diagnosis was like, okay, it's something that I can potentially fix. It's something like it has been studied. It's not like some like weird thing with what's going on in my body. And it was kind of a relief. But at the same time,
sometimes diagnoses are a bit of a relief, just to give you that mental, like, okay, this is what's wrong and there's a solution to overcome it and to fix it.
oh yeah, for sure. And I didn't really think much about it, except for I was like, okay, I looked up like how to increase bone density. It's pretty much just gain weight, also like resistance exercise and like lifting weights and pounding, which is weird to me because you think you just break more. But after that, I was a little more skeptical of running. I didn't run for a solid 6 months after that state meet. And yeah, starting running again, I was like, okay, this is terrifying. I'm just going to break again, which is sort of true. I don't think I fractured, but my hip flexors get angry. And so I just had to stop a few times and did that a couple times over the summer. Okay, we're going to jump back to November is when I signed with the university to run there, I guess, run cross country and track. So then we can fast forward to around August. I got to campus. It was a Wednesday. Practice was supposed to start on Friday. They randomly scheduled me an appointment like a week or two before. And I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. Like, maybe it's just because my hips are bugging me. And I got there. The doctor pretty much just like checked out my hip. And then she's like, okay, well, she probably said this a little bit better than this, but actually probably not. But she was like, we're going to medically like disqualify you. You can't run at the university. And me having like hyped it up and was so excited, and I was finally gonna like live the dream that I had dreamt of for the past 4 years. It was gone in a 2-second span. And I mean, it took a little bit. I'm like, don't cry. And then I couldn't help it. So, because I mean, My dad, I don't remember. I think it was, I went home a couple days later. Okay, because they wouldn't give me another bone density scan because they based it off of my one in November, which was kind of annoying because it'd been 9 months since then. I have gained weight. I've, done everything right. And my bone density was up quite significantly, which I went home to get that because they wouldn't give me one there because, yeah. And so I mean, obviously I was heartbroken. And then a way that my dad described it, it's good. Pretty much he described it that he described it to his coworker or someone that it was like a death in the family, like for me. It was as if someone in my family had died because it was such a huge part of my life and just it was gone. And yeah, it was and I didn't it was such like a huge part of my identity, just running in general and gone. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what was going to happen. And yeah, I've at first, I mean, pretty much it was horrible. I didn't know what to do. I was still on campus. They told me after I got there and had all my stuff with me. And after I had just passed the deadline to cancel my housing, because I could have lived at home because of COVID and all my classes were online. And I was like, you're kidding me. This is so stupid because just like the timing and everything. And obviously it was a whole huge part of who I was. And this was kind of looking back, it was a blessing. I mean, I knew from the start, I just tried to tell myself like everything happens for a reason. Like there's obviously a reason to this. And the reason to this, I'm pretty sure is one, I was way more vulnerable. And I wouldn't be telling this story if I was like I was a year ago. I would have just kept it in me. I would have never told that. I would have never got to work with a physical therapist that I worked with who like completely got my hips working again. And now I know how to do it myself. And three, I would have never worked with Lindsay. And that honestly, I don't even know where I would be right now. It would not be as good of a place as as I am right now, with food, with exercise, with who I am as a person. And it was life changing. Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Yes.
It is. It's heartbreaking that for you, as you've expressed and shared with us, you were a runner from a young age.
Yeah.
Young age. This was so much part of your passion, your hobby, your identity. It was your goal. It was your dreams. It was a family event, going to all these races. And it was, here you are excited for the next chapter in your life of running at a university. And it's just taken away from you. And it's just crushing. And again, that's why I do hope that when we talk about this whole, like these decisions we make for ourselves at such a young age, or comparing ourselves or our body size, or thinking not getting a period is a good thing, is I wish it didn't happen to you, Jaden, but because it did, I hope that other people can learn from it and say, yeah, I don't want all of that to be taken away from me.
Yeah.
Like that, and so it's heartbreaking. But with that said, it was absolutely the right thing for, the university had to do that. And every university has their own policies when it comes to how they medically qualify or disqualify somebody, but your bones were not fit to run, and you would have broken again, and that wouldn't have been good for you as a person. That wouldn't have been good for the university, for the team, so it absolutely crushing, heartbreaking, tragic. And yet it was what you needed to move forward with your life in a better direction.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I got to adjust to college, and I mean, my classes weren't that hard but and then I got to work with multiple people that were really good. I got to, spend some time exploring campus. The amount of time that I walked that last semester, oh my gosh, thousands of steps. But anyway, by the time I was alone a lot, I would say. And so I just I got into my head, I'm good at being alone. I kind of enjoy it, but also I like people, but usually. And then just kind of more issues developed with my relationship with food and exercise. And I was just kind of I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't live like this any longer. Like, my bones were bad. I needed to get my period. I knew those things. Those were factual. But also, like, more internally, like, I knew I needed to eat more, but I wouldn't let myself. Like, I knew that I needed more fuel, that I should do less maybe, but I wouldn't let myself. And because I don't know why, but like it was.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing this. Cause it's like, even after the osteoporosis diagnosis, even after the 2 stress fractures, even after the medical disqualification, a few more months went by until you called me. Because, and I think that's fair to say that even when we have all these glaring red flags, getting yourself to the point of being able to make a change is still a big step. And so a few more things happened in between there of, oh gosh, like I'm aware of all this and yet I'm still not eating more. It's not like you left that medical appointment and went and got a Big Mac. Like, that didn't happen overnight. So it took a little bit more time, but eventually it sounds like you got to the place where you're like, I just don't want to live like this anymore, which I think quite honestly resonated in the entire time that we worked together. And I will say that was a really positive thing of us working together, is that by the time you did come to me, you were dedicated to, I'm not going to do this anymore. You didn't know how, I think.
Yeah.
You didn't know how. You didn't know the steps, but you kind of stood your ground. You made your decision. You're like, I'm not going to live like this anymore. I am going to get better. I am going to get my period. I am going to recover my bones. I am going to run again someday, but not right now. And you like stood your ground on that. And I was like, perfect. Then this is the how, right? This is how we move forward.
Yeah. There is like a plus side to getting multiple injuries. Not that I'd recommend doing what I did, but you do learn to listen to your body, even though it was like 4 years, you could say 5 years of like a continuous injury cycle that took me that long to realize that what my body is telling me. So if something I'll notice now, I'll be like, oh, this is off a little bit. So I'm going to stop running for a few days or doing whatever for a few days because it's not worth it. It's just not worth it in the end. And I mean, I wish I would have done that. But at the same time, I had a pretty good high school career and some good stories to tell. And yeah, so I was struggling with like obviously the more factual things like my bones and not having a period. But I also like more internally, like I struggled with, like I was saying, I know I needed to eat more, but I don't know how. Like I had to earn my food through exercise. I had to eat only what I burned off, or like just like, because your watch like inaccurately tells you the amount of calories that you burn off. And I'm like, oh, I burned more today, so I can eat more. But like if it's less than usual, then I should eat less, which is stupid because they just plug it into a stupid equation. And
yeah. And it doesn't know that your watch doesn't know that you're recovering from years of underfueling and osteoporosis. It doesn't know your medical needs. It doesn't know your nutrition needs. It's your watch is spitting out the same data for every single person, just about, you know?
Yeah. It knows your height and your weight and inaccurately your heart rate. And
exactly.
I'm sorry, but that's not who I am. I'm not just numbers. I'm more than that.
Sure are.
And yeah, I was also like, I felt like all I thought about was food. Like I distinctly remember like a couple nights that I would just like lay in bed and just be like, oh no, or like, what should I eat tomorrow? Like, I just plan it out in my head. And also like over exercising while under fueling was not good for me. And I was like really rigid with my exercise. Like there's definitely days where I overslept and I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do? And like I planned to do this, but now that plan's ruined. But usually I'd adapt decently, but still it was more dramatic than it needed to be. But yeah, all of these things were pretty resolved by the end of the 12 weeks. Well, I guess we worked together for 20 weeks.
Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. So we're totally just like fast forwarding of like, well, now it's all resolved. And, I do have to say, like, some people are like, well, how did you do it? Well, you did it through working together. And, I do have a program that I put all my clients through, but so much of this program is individualized. And so I can't, what worked for Jaden might not necessarily work for somebody else. But with that being said, we addressed the fueling enough. We addressed these concerns of feeling like you need to earn your food. We addressed what recovery should look like for you. And not that you were working with sports medicine. I wasn't your exercise physiologist, but just helping you with the nutrition side as we're taking recovery and rest days. And what does nutrition look like for that? We worked through understanding food better, having more fun with food, starting to enjoy our food more, starting to have more variety in our meals, starting to challenge our portions, starting to go back to some of those foods you used to love as a kid. Like you mentioned earlier, you used to love Kraft mac and cheese and like getting back to that. So we did all of those things and addressing your bone health too, right? Bones do take a long time to recover, but because you can get your period back and because we can do nutritional and exercise and hormonal interventions, you can see improvement in that. So we addressed all of that. And that's what brings you to where you are now. And I was wondering, Jaden, if you could give like a little recap, I guess, of some of those things you were just saying, like your relationship with food or needing to earn your food or thinking about food a lot. Like, where are you at now with all that?
I mean, now if I think about food, it's more of like, okay, I'm hungry, like, or I'm just trying to find a recipe for dinner or something like that. It's not like it's not keeping me up at night. I mean, if anything, school's keeping me up at night, but not anymore. I'm done. But yeah, also like realizing that I have so many like little rules with food and just like breaking those. That was beyond helpful. Just realizing that these are a load. Here's my SpongeBob reference, but these are a load of barnacles. Like, it's so stupid that I can't eat this on a rest day or something like that. And yeah, that was definitely a big challenge for me, was like realizing that completely switching the mindset to not that I have to eat less on easier days, but that I have to eat more on the days that I work harder. Just like, it's even like more of like how I see it as like a glass half full or glass half empty is like, just like even like the way you're saying it, like in your head, is less is more negative than more. And so just like a mindset shift in that. And also like I had a hard time like exercise wise with taking easy days. I push myself hard every day and I wouldn't let myself go less. I'd need to go more, if anything. And just letting myself go easy. I'd take days off, but they wouldn't really be days off. And just letting myself not have to do everything that I always felt like I needed to do. And realizing that, you know what, it's okay. Like, I'm going to be better for this. And also looking back, like at my progress, I have eaten things that I would have eaten as a fourth grader, but never would have eaten as like a freshman or sophomore in high school, or even heck, like 6 months ago. And yeah, like I was saying, I loved Kraft mac and cheese as a kid, and I hadn't had it since I was in probably 6th grade. I guess it's different now, and they don't have SpongeBob shapes, which is highly disappointing. But
bring back the SpongeBob mac and cheese.
Yeah. I cannot express that enough. And then also like McDonald's. I never expected a dietitian to tell me to go get McDonald's or not eat whole grains in a day or not eat vegetables in a day. I was just like, this is weird.
I did so many amazing challenges for you. I really did.
Yes, it was all great.
Yeah. And I know some people listening to this might be like, what? Is that even healthy? Yes, it was. It was for Jaden. It is for Jaden. And sometimes we have to I'm not going to stand here and promote, I'm going to go with McDonald's because I think this is the most radical of all examples, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that we should all eat McDonald's every single day, 3 times a day to be our healthiest selves. And I'm not going to say that. I believe in balance and moderation, but it is equally unhealthy to never allow yourself McDonald's.
Oh yeah.
That is equally unhealthy. So that was one of Jaden's challenges, and she crushed it, and she went and did it, and you did it with your mom, I think, right? So you made a memory out of it, and
we were so excited.
Yeah. And it's like, hey, I can do this. I can do this. I can have this. And not only did it not hurt me, but actually it brought some value to my life, and it brought some benefit to my life. And it actually was a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. It was totally like, it's really weird that getting McDonald's is freeing, but it was like realizing that like, I can't eat this. Like, it doesn't matter. I was fine. I woke up the next day. I didn't die. And I like eating a hamburger from McDonald's. It was honestly beautiful. I would go back right now.
Well, maybe you should.
I should actually.
Yeah, I think you should. If you're craving it again.
But yeah, like it brought me back to like 3rd grade after school, going to go get a hamburger and fries from McDonald's and sitting in like the lobby eating it. And yeah, it was fun. It was good. It was healthy for me, which is weird. People often associate like McDonald's with unhealthy, but for me, it was healthy, and it was what I needed to do. And honestly, I'm better for it. And yeah, I'm thankful for sure for all of the very strange and sometimes uncomfortable challenges, often uncomfortable challenges that you have given me throughout the time that we were working together. And yeah, it was good.
It was good. I want to say this too. I did give you quite a lot of challenges. And that is why in this program, like I call it the fast track, because here you are, somebody who has struggled with nutrition since age 10, 12. So you had 10 years of struggling with nutrition. And as we mentioned before, and then like hopes and dreams and identity and everything was taken away from you within like 2 seconds. And so are we going to let another 10 years go by? Are we going to let more dreams and hopes like be taken away from us? Or are we going to do something about this as quickly as possible? And I say this to motivate people that if you are ready, and I guess one, I'll say, if you're not ready, keep listening, reach out, ask for support, and get yourself ready. But when you are ready, you can overcome this fast, and you can transform fast, and you can be where Jaden is right now, where she is physically stronger, healthier, and she is mentally so much more free and enjoying life again and finding her identity again. And, finding herself within sport once again as well, as your return to run plan is in the works, and because you're stronger. And that happened fast when we think about the years that you struggled. This was a fast transformation for you because you were ready for it.
Yeah. At the beginning, I was like, can this really change me totally in 3 months? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to like put my effort forth for sure and hope for the best. And I couldn't have asked for anything better. I mean, honestly, I was talking to my dad a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, so like, was it a good investment of like time, money, etc.? And I'm like, considering it was in one of my top 5 best decisions that I've ever made, I think so. So definitely worth it. If you're people who are listening, if you're thinking about maybe working with Lindsay, maybe reaching out for help, do it. Do it. It's worth it. It's worth it. And like the community as well that's surrounding it. You're not alone at all. There's I don't even know how many girls that are in the program who have either are done with it, but still like in the, I suppose, group chat, or like those that are working in it, and those who are more experienced support the people who aren't as experienced. And it's all like a learning process, and it's just the support, and yeah, it's great. I feel like it's more than you would get from another dietitian. And yeah, I feel like honestly, it's not just like food that you address, or like, oh, you need to eat more or whatever. It's like also like the psychological aspect of it. And that is key. Because yes, I could eat more, but would my like mind be telling me something different? Or like, just because I look fine on the outside doesn't mean that my mind is fine, which is a big thing that I feel like a lot of people need to realize. Yeah, and I feel like it's becoming more common as people are being more open about mental health on like social media and just in general throughout. Yeah, one of the good things that came from COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of mental health crises started or worsened or were exacerbated, but also people started talking about it more because it had to be. So that was good too. And that's why I'm so thankful for you, Jaden, with being willing to share your story too, because the more that people share, bring awareness, the less people feel alone in this, because they're not alone. You weren't alone, right? And as you joined in my programming and you met some other girls and women who had similar struggles, but were also actively overcoming them, it was like, wow, we're not alone. We don't have to struggle with this alone, and we don't have to struggle even. We can get better. And it's so wonderful. And so for you to be a role model and to share your story, and especially as you've mentioned, like in your past, you haven't been super open. And so this is a big deal for you. And we just thank you so much for being open and sharing your story and inspiring others and giving them the advice that you just did of get help.
Yeah. It's not worth waiting anymore. If you don't want to live the way you're living, get help. It's not worth it. Yeah. That's probably like my biggest thing. I'm realizing that I didn't want to live the way that I was living, and something needed to change.
Yeah. And I kind of want to bring this full circle to with the osteoporosis talk and the bone health talk, and say, that you are seeing improvement with that. Cause I think a lot of people are worried, and for good reason. You should be worried, and you need to take action on it. If you've heard anything from this podcast, you heard that Jaden worked hard with me, and I challenged her hard, and she crushed it, and she saw results, but you actually are seeing improvements. You did see improvements in your bone health. And I know you have another DEXA scan coming up. So we'll, our fingers are crossed, but I know that you'll have seen improvement there too. And I think that brings hope to people who might have an osteopenia or osteoporosis or multiple stress fractures, if they're listening to this and resonating with you, of like, you can turn that around. The sooner, the better, because there is a time, and we do need our hormones. We do need estrogen to get our bones stronger. And I did talk about this on another podcast episode with Dr. Krause, and I'll link in the show notes, but it can happen. So it's not, the end of everything. You can improve if you're ready to work for it.
Yeah. Even honestly, before bone issues start is better, but
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well, Jaden, thank you so much again. Is there anything else you wanted to add, or feel like we didn't cover anything completely?
No, I feel like, do you
feel good?
Yeah, I feel pretty good.
Awesome. Well, Jaden, I usually at the end of my podcast episodes do rapid fire questions. Do you know what they are?
No, I'm scared.
They'll be fun. Okay, so I have a few rapid fire questions just for fun, and we'll kick you off. If you could eat one food every single day for the rest of your life and never get sick of it, what would it be?
Oh gosh. Oh, it's going to be a tie between granola, oatmeal, and sweet potatoes. Because
a three-way tie. You probably do eat those foods every single day already.
Yeah, I would. No, granola is a slight obsession of mine. Which, okay, so technically oatmeal would cover that category.
I think so.
But, so maybe oatmeal. But also I like sweet potatoes with some good peanut butter or sun butter.
And some granola on top.
So that'd be good. True.
Yes.
So maybe we need oatmeal. It's oatmeal or sweet potatoes. One of those two. I don't know if I can decide.
You're definitely a granola girl. I've seen all your food pictures over the last few months. You're definitely a granola girl.
I have like 3 jars of it in the pantry right now. So
awesome. Granola, oatmeal, sweet potatoes, preferably all combined. You could eat that every single day.
Yes.
Jaden, what's your favorite sport?
I obviously run, but I I like cross country more than track. It's more interesting, I suppose, even though I do like track, but yeah, cross country.
Yeah. How about as a spectator? Is it still cross country, or do you have another sport that's your favorite to be a spectator?
I mean, cross country, I feel like is not a very I guess professionally or usually watching, if not there, it would probably be track, just because I actually know what's going on. Like with football, I don't understand it, nor do I really enjoy it. And then also, yeah, it's just something that I understand and actually enjoy, and probably know people who are running. So
yeah,
probably track.
Makes it fun when you're invested in the sport and you understand it and you understand the strategy behind all the races. It makes it.
Yeah. Whether it be because I've met a couple pros at nationals, so I'd be like, hey, I've met her before, or even people that I've raced against in high school or something like that.
Awesome. Okay, last rapid fire question. Is there a female athlete that really inspires you? This can be a professional or not, that just inspires you and is a role model.
Oh gosh, probably. I'd have to go with probably I'm going to go with the typical runner response of probably Emma Coburn or Shalane Flanagan, just because, one, they're super good. Two, Shalane's injury comeback story before winning the New York City Marathon. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I've met Emma Coburn. That was kind of fun. And she was really sweet. So yeah, they both are pretty down to earth, and I suppose real people, which they all are, but they're real.
Yeah, they express that openly. They're very real and honest in the work that they do, the stuff they put out, and amazing athletes. Yeah, Shalane took quite some time off right before winning the New York City Marathon, which I think was a great testament to and this has come up in our conversation a lot of you don't always have to push through the pain. I know for a lot of athletes, we're always thinking we have to, but sometimes actually rest and recovery is exactly what you need. And then you can be like Shalane and just win the New York City Marathon right after taking time off. Yes. And Jaden, that might be your story as well, that after all this work and hard work, I think you will absolutely see the fruits of your labor and have, whether it's running or just enjoying life more, who knows what will bring you, but so proud of all that you've accomplished. It's been a pleasure working with you. And thank you again for sharing your story of how you turned your life around, how you started fueling better, how you started being a more fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete, and also giving all that advice to everyone else so that they can as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Well, fans, if you resonated with anything Jaden was saying or her story, or if you want the transformation that she herself has seen and experienced, then I would strongly encourage you to reach out. I do offer just a couple different programs and services for clients. And what Jaden was enrolled in is what I call the Female Athlete System of Transformation, aka the fast track to overcome disordered eating and use food as fuel to perform your best. And so if you're interested in seeing if this might be the solution and transformation that you need, then I offer free phone consultations. I'll include the link in the show notes. And of course, you can always head to my website, www.riseupnutritionrun.com, and you can learn more. You can see testimonials. You can book a call with me direct from there. And we can just chat and see, if I can help you or if this is the right program for you. And if it's not, I might still be able to give you advice or point you in the right direction. But if you're ready, like Jaden was, there's help, there's a solution, there's a transformation waiting for you. And I would be just honored to be a part of that, just like I was for Jaden. So reach out if you need help. Look in the show notes, go on my website to learn more about the fast track. And as always, stay fierce, fit, and fueled.